Who I am, I always think about just my foundation in faith first. So I'm a man of God. I'm a husband to my wife, Jamila. I'm a father to my two boys, Nico and Dominic. I'm a business owner. I'm a friend. I'm a member of my community that I care deeply about. I'm a person that has a lot of energy about life, and I feel blessed every day that I get to wake up and that I get to get after it. Yeah.
I love to hear it. I like how you define yourself first by not your job, not your career, but you're a husband,
Yeah.
you're a father,
Yeah.
a community member, making sure to help a lot of people around you out. That's something I really appreciate about you.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
You're always trying to help people.
Well, it's cool. Like we got to meet that way, right through that opportunity when I, heard you speaking, and I was just super impressed by you not letting your past define who you are, but just seeing that there are people that care deeply about you, and that you knew what was then possible. And then for you to take that was super impressive to me. So we met through community engagement as well, which was fantastic. Yeah.
I wanted to break into a little bit about how you ended up where you are.
Sure.
So I know you talked about your father's passing a little bit and how that was kind of a turning point in your life.
Yeah.
Before then, you were studying business. You were not really sure what you wanted out of life.
Yeah.
Well, how did that event impact you?
Yeah, I feel like every day you wake up and you have an opportunity to make a decision, but life is really about a series of choices. And when my father passed away, I was just, starting to become a man, right? I was a young kid, and that really rocked my world, right? Because you're thinking, okay, I had all this time with this guy, right? I'm going to get all this wisdom from him. He's going to help me really step into this next phase of my life. Cool. And you're kind of doing the motions a little bit. You're a kid. And then all of a sudden one day you move from a kid to being a man, like in a moment. And I realized that, okay, I got to make some decisions now on what I want my life to look like. But here's the thing. And it's maybe similar to what you would attest to. I was super blessed to be surrounded by people that cared deeply about our family and about my brother and myself. And they're willing to tell us the truth. A lot of people go in this world and they're afraid to say what really needs to be said. Proverbs 27:6. It's really about your true friends will tell you the truth. And we had some people really talk to us like openly about, hey, look, you have a choice to make in your life right now. Your dad was creating this legacy and he believed deeply in these things. You have a choice to make. You can complain about him passing away and what you don't have, or you can make a decision to say, am I going to continue to carry that torch? And so for me, it was like, it just struck me. I said, what does my last name mean? Not literally, but what does it mean? What does it stand for? And that has now, decades later turned into like every day I think about that. And now I think about it in even a different context because I think about it as to my kids. But it just changed me in that moment. And I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't angry. I was angry. My why? You go through all those motions in your head. Why would this happen to us? Why would it happen to him? He never did anything to anybody. He just loved people. And I quickly figured out like it's not about why or why not. It's just a matter of, God needed him at that moment. And I've realized that now over time. I didn't understand that in that moment. But now I get it. And it's not for me to really understand as much as me to say, okay, well, what are we going to do with that? And I made a choice, and I make a choice every single day to say, well, how am I going to lead my life in honor of that legacy that he had started? That now I'm a steward of that torch.
How would you define that torch?
When you think about when they came to this country, it was in the 60s. And they wanted opportunity, not, again, just for themselves, but for their future family. And so their whole vision was, how do we come? And then how do we bring others? And then how do we create this foundation so that our family can continue to grow here? But it was always a foundation of family. And so I think, one of the things that's really important to my wife and I as part of that torch is, how do we make sure that the foundation of faith and family are the bedrock to who we are. So everything is really built around those things, and then it comes from that. How do you continue to pursue excellence? That was something that was really important to him, to never be okay with okay. To never just be satisfied. That's different than to not be appreciative or in gratitude, but also to say, how can you continue to improve every single day? So that's a lot of just who I am, and it's interesting, a lot of times you have those things inside of you, and you need people around you to see the gifts inside of you to help you bring those gifts about. He started helping me see that. And then I've been blessed again with so many people around me that have helped me see what's possible in myself.
I mean, my first reaction to hearing that your dad passed away when you were 19 is that I didn't really start getting close to my dad until I was 19.
Yeah.
So I would have never had that period of time where it's like, okay, my dad is starting to pass down wisdom and knowledge. Before then, I just went in one ear out the other. Like he'd tell me, oh, you have to learn to work hard. And I'd be like, I want to stay in bed. It was like up until I was like 19, I like understood. I was like, oh, I see what my dad's been doing. I see how he's been teaching me things, helping me along the way.
I love that.
Yeah. And so, that is, you lost that bit of it and you had to learn from your dad with him being gone.
Yeah.
And see, what did he do back then that I've seen?
Yes.
What are the pieces that I can pick up?
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that you had the right people around you that were willing to tell you the right things or the hard things. First off, who were the right people? What was different about them? And what were they willing to tell you that other people wouldn't?
Well, so first I want to start with my mother, So imagine you're married to the love of your life and all of a sudden that person's not in your life anymore. But you're responsible for your kids.
Yeah.
Right. And so no matter what, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, your responsibility hadn't changed. It just became more paramount that now it was all on you. And so I'd start first with my mother saying, all right, I got this. Right. And she put us on her back and said, we're going to be good as a family, because she realized that and she taught us that. So that was the first thing. But beyond that, my mother was always giving to community, and she taught us that. She taught us that because we've been blessed, it's important that we don't keep those blessings, but we share them with others, and we help others see what's possible. And so we were super fortunate. And she taught us. She taught us how to connect with people, how to talk to people, how to have interactions with people, almost to a point of annoyance. I mean, I was like, please, I do not want to go to another party when I'm a kid, I don't want to be a part of this or a part of that. I don't want to learn those things. It just became almost like too much. But in retrospect, I look back and I'm like, man, thank God that she taught us those things, because she taught us how to communicate, how to interact, how to love on others, how to share with others, how to be a great member of the community. And because of those things, we were surrounded by people that cared deeply about us, and were willing to be there when we most needed them, which is really how your true friends and the ones that aren't. But that's how it started. And then, if I may, I'll go into like career. Affiliating with the right organization is so important, because I believe deeply in mentorship, and I believe that everyone has a gift. Like, if you think about the way you're made, every day you should be seeking out saying, what is the gift that I've been blessed with that I need to be using in this world? Right? And you need people to help you see those gifts. And so being in part of the right organization where there's opportunity for mentorship, for guidance, for challenge, for showing you what's possible, not doing it for you, but encouraging you by creating disciplines and accountability. That's all good, right? By allowing you to get knocked on your rear end and have to get back up, but having a culture that welcomes that says that's the gift. I always say the struggle is the gift. Yeah. And I've realized that over time that being a part of those environments has helped cultivate, seeing things inside of me and help cultivate them into reality. Because I didn't know. I was like, I'm just an average kid. I always thought of myself that way. I'm like average. I'm going to get a job. I'm just average. And I don't know if I was okay with that, but that's just how I had that mentality. And what I realized is, no, that's not about that. And it's not about me being better than you or anybody. It was always about, well, how do I become better than who I was yesterday? And if I just have that mentality every single day, then what's really possible, right? And it's not about me ever being, I think that people having accomplishments in life, they show you what's possible. But too many people get caught up in going, I want to be like that person. And I've learned that it's not about me wanting to be like that person. It's saying that, hey, I love that person has done that. Let's celebrate that. And now I know that not only is that possible, but what's next? And how do we start aiming for that? So that's really what I've been taught, in life, and now how I live my life.
Yeah. Yeah, they're showing you the path that's available forward, right?
Yeah.
If you have people around you who all the paths you see are run of the mill, are not unconventional, then that's the only things you think are possible.
Yeah.
You've never seen anything else.
Totally.
And so you see someone go an unconventional route, you might not follow the exact same path.
Yeah.
But you will see that an unconventional path is possible. It's possible to make it through that. And you mentioned that the struggle is the way through, right?
Yeah.
That's like the thing that makes us stronger, makes us better.
Right.
One of my friends sent me a quote yesterday, which was like, the cave that you fear to enter holds the exact treasure that you desire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that just reminded me of that, because
That's true.
so often it's like the thing that we want is just right behind some layer of fear, layer of insecurity, layer of a limiting belief.
Yeah.
It's like, and the only way to get to where you want is to enter into that.
Yeah. You're right. It's the standard that we hold ourselves to is really important every single day, because we got to expect a lot from ourselves. And if I may, I think about the world that we're in today. So often it's about, I think, stealing pain. It's about soothing the pain. It's about making sure that we feather the fall. We don't want to get hurt because our emotions are too sensitive. And what is that really preparing us for? Have you heard of the saying where hard times make strong men make good times make weak men make hard times?
Yeah.
And I feel like right now we have a lot of weakness, and we have to create synthetic struggle oftentimes. But we can't avoid struggle. And struggle is not bad. I think that a lot of times we think, oh, geez, it's more of a pain, or it's too hard, or whatever. I'm like, no, that's good. Like, hard is good, because you learn from hard. You learn how to, like, you can theoretically read about, people that have struggled in their life and go, yeah, one day, if I'm in that position, I would totally do that. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. But if you're not prepared for it, then how do you know? So, yeah, if you don't have struggle in your life, create it. Go study something that's really difficult. Go get a job that's like totally out of the realm of what you would normally do, and see if you can do it.
Yeah.
Right? Go commit to running a marathon. If the furthest you've ever run is a mile, right? You can do it if you want. So how do you live a life like that? And you have to set high standards for that. But I'm like, man, if you're blessed with one life, one shot, and today was your last day, why would you ever not just leave it all out there?
Yeah, put it all out on the court.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I read this this guy, like, there's all these people that always send these messages out. One of them that I read every day, it always starts with, today is the most important day of your life.
That's impactful.
I know, and I read that every day. I'm like, that's awesome. Like,
well, that's like a glass of water in the face.
It totally is, yeah.
You wake up and you're like, oh, I'm going to go through the motions. I'll go to work. I'll do what I need to do. But if it's the most important day of your life, what would you do? What would you do differently?
Well, and so think, if you approach your everyday like that, I just think that you would think totally differently. But so many people are just doing the motions, and they're going, man, one day when I get here, or one day when I get this, or one day when I'm in this position, then I will.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you gotta do that now.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. I was just thinking about I'll do this when.
Yeah.
Because I think this actually happens really often, maybe like guys in regards to dating.
Yeah.
It happens a lot. I've seen it so many times. It's like you might have a friend and they're like, I'm not really looking for something right now until like this happens. Until I get a better job, or until I get to a new city, or until I like get in the gym.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, life is today.
Yeah.
Like nothing's going to change by you like moving to a new city.
Yeah.
The problems follow you.
Yeah. Right. And you're right. I mean, it's, have you heard of this, this comparison of cows and buffaloes in a storm?
No, I've never heard this one.
So cows, storm, let's say in Colorado, right, we've got the Front Range and the mountains, and the storms come from the west going east, right, over the mountains, and they almost always flow that way. So you see the clouds run over the mountains, the storm is coming. The cows tend to run away from the storm.
Okay.
Right? And that seems like the smart thing to do. I'm going to run away from it. Well, what are you doing? The rain starts catching you, and then you elongate the storm.
Yep.
And you keep trying to run away from it, but it's catching up.
And it keeps coming after you.
Whereas the buffaloes go, storms come, and they run into it, and they close the gap. Right? And they meet the storm head on. They go, let's go. Right? And then they get through it. And then they become stronger and better for it.
Yeah.
So I think I use that as a metaphor for my life. I'm like, if the storm is there, if the challenge is there, just lean into it.
Yeah.
Right? And go, all right, don't be afraid of it. Right? And courage is not the absence of fear, it's acting in light of it.
Yep.
So just have courage and go, okay, cool, I can be scared. That's okay.
Yeah.
But I sure as heck I'm not going to learn anything unless I do something. So easier said than done, but courage is a habit.
Courage is a habit, and it's something that can't be faked.
Can't be faked, no.
Because everyone feels fear.
Yeah.
The only difference between the courageous person and the non-courageous one is acting in face of the fear.
Totally.
Can't
Love
be
it,
faked.
man.
Impossible.
Yeah, love that. And it's amazing that, like, knowing that at your age right now is going to serve you so well in your life.
Hope so, man.
It will, I promise.
I hope so.
I promise.
I was curious about, you mentioned that the thing that plagued you was you always felt average.
Yeah.
And something that I found in my life is that a lot of times I'll overcome a problem or an insecurity.
Yeah.
And it comes back in a sneakier way. Does that ever come back for you?
I love what you're saying. We're not infallible to feelings and emotions getting the better of us. None of us are. In fact, I don't think life is about avoiding those things. I think it's about closing the gap, right? So we get knocked down every day, name it. There's stuff that's happened today. Some of it's a little bit more of a knockdown than others, and some of it's like little minor things. But what I've learned is that the most successful people in this world are not the ones that stay knocked down. They're the ones that get back up quick and they get going again. They keep taking action and moving forward. And so what you got to teach yourself is not about avoiding the fall, but about creating the habit of saying, how can I get up and get going quickly?
Yeah.
And the only way that you can do that is, one, I think it's important that you change your physiology. So if you let's say you're sitting at a desk and you get a bad phone call, right? Somebody was agreeing to do something with you, let's say in your business, and then they change their mind. Okay, that could be hard, right? What are you gonna do about it? Like, cry about it? Nobody cares. So stand up, go outside, maybe take a deep breath, fresh air, come back in and go, all right, what are two things that I can do, two positives that I can get, two actions that I can take to now negate the one negative so I'm still +1. So I've created this habit of saying, if I get a no, I'm going to go find two yeses. Relentless forward momentum, right? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I'm still positive. You will not defeat me. You just can't. Because I will always go get one more win than the one that you took away. And so I'm still +1. And I just have this in my head. I'm like, you will not win. Nothing you do will take me down. You can come at me all you want, but I'm always going to keep fighting. And what I think a lot of people do in this life is they get the no and they sit in it. They're like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And then they start getting into story. See, I'm not good enough. I can't do this.
Yeah.
Look at the guys or the gals down the hall. She's always getting the deal and I'm not. Maybe I should just change my job. Maybe I should change my career. I knew I was never going to be good as this. Those people that are doing really well, they're the ones that had the best market. or the best ideas or the best language or the best suits or the best haircut or whatever. And I don't have those things.
Yeah.
And therefore, I'm not.
They always have something you don't have.
And I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always have something better than me. And then you get into the story that you're telling yourself. And then you go, you know what? I got an idea. I'm going to go home. I'm going to sleep this off. Then I'll come back tomorrow. I'll be prepared. I'll be energized. But then I come back tomorrow and I'm like, man, I'm still feeling like garbage. I wonder why. And then they start thinking about that again. And you start reinforcing that garbage story that you said in your head about how you're not good enough. And you get stuck in this pattern. And then that pattern keeps feeding on itself. And then you manifest that into your reality.
Yep.
And I think that's what happens to so many people in life. They're poor storytellers. You know, everything happens twice, once in your head and then once in reality. And so how do you tell yourself a good story? You make it a habit of finding success. So that's what I've learned.
Yeah. And so when you end up having those moments where you say a negative story about yourself, your brain starts looking for evidence to validate the story.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Now you go outside and you're looking for evidence that you're not good enough, and you'll find it.
Yeah.
You'll find evidence for any story your brain creates about yourself. The only thing you can do is create a different story. And then it starts looking for evidence of that.
Yeah.
Oh, I am successful. Okay. Every day you walk out, what is the evidence that you are successful?
Yeah.
And then you just find it.
Yeah.
And it, in the same way that the negative loop snowballs, so can the positive loop. And so it's remembering every day, what is the story I'm telling about myself?
So how do you go about doing that for yourself though?
So for myself, I often get caught in those thought loops, the negative ones.
Yeah.
And then I look for evidence for the contrary. That's how I do it. So I'll be like, oh, my life sucks. So whatever's going on in my head that day, like I'm not good enough. I'm doing this podcast. Nobody's going to listen, right?
Yeah.
And so I look for evidence to the contrary. After I released the first episode, I got a ton of kind messages from like friends and family that were like, oh, I love your podcast. Like I had a great time listening to it. And some of them even took the time to write a longer message, like reacting to it. This is what I took away from it. This is what I learned. And that was just like, oh, this is evidence, right? It's evidence to the contrary. Maybe I am making something good. Maybe it's not true that I'm not good enough. And so looking for those small pieces of evidence could be as simple as someone just like smiling at you through the day.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, nobody likes me. Someone smiles at you. You're like, oh, maybe people do like me. And so that's my strategy for it, is find evidence in the outside world that the negative story I'm telling myself is not true.
I love it though. You find evidence which is reality.
Yeah.
And the reality is it doesn't support your BS story.
Yeah, exactly. And so with imposter syndrome, one of my favorite, I forget what the quote's from, but it's like, at a certain point, you have enough evidence in the real world to prove that you're not an imposter. And it becomes more about your addiction to feeling like an imposter than actually being an imposter.
So you almost want to be an imposter because it actually feeds who you think you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's feeding that loop of insecurity, of whatever trauma might be coming from that. It's feeding into that. But at a certain point, you have enough evidence. Your only choice is to not feel like an imposter anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but it's interesting too, you know, it's hard to do that on your own.
Yeah.
So how have you developed relationships, and how do you choose who you want in your life and who you don't want in your life?
That's a great question. For me, it's always been listen to advice from people that are where you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can get advice from anyone, like the person next door to you, your neighbor, some person on the street. But not all advice is equal. Not all people's opinions about your life are equal.
That's good.
And so it's the people that know you and that are where you want to be that you should listen to. And that's how I've been trying to lead my life. Even this podcast is part of that larger philosophy is, okay, I want to talk to people who are where I want to be.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
And how do I share that with the world as well? So
that's great.
Find people that I think will be interesting, will be able to share some learnings with me, and then follow my curiosity.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a question for you. First off, I want to know what your daily routine looks like, because I know you're chasing challenge often.
Yeah.
You're making sure that you're not getting comfortable. You're also raising a family. What does that daily routine look like?
so I think, again, when I talk about discipline being a habit, I'm very disciplined in my mornings, in my warm up to the day. So I have 2 different wake up times depending on the workout regimen that's going on in the morning. So it's either 4 or 4:45 a.m. But the routine that follows is exactly the same. I get up, I get my gym clothes on, I grab my cup of coffee, I sit in my office, I pull out my journal, I write down 3 areas of my life out of 6 that I have in my vision statement, 3 areas in particular that I want to focus on that day. And then what I want to do in those 3 areas so that I look back at the end of the day and say, I had success in those areas. So what do I want to accomplish in those 3 areas? And then I focus on what I'm grateful for that morning. Where do I have gratitude in my life? And let me express that by thinking about it and by writing it and seeing it. And then I read my vision statement every day. And my vision statement is in the present tense. I am these things in these areas. And then I pray my morning prayer. And right now I happen to be reading the Bible. So I read a couple verses of the Bible. And then I look at my calendar. That takes about 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. By that point, I'm already winning because I'm living the person that I know I am to be. And I'm living from a position of abundance, of gratitude, of appreciation for the blessings that are in my life. It doesn't matter what comes after, right? Because I'm in a position of seeing whatever comes at me as an opportunity, right? Too many people get up and what's the first thing they do?
Scroll on their phone.
Yeah, exactly. So how's the news been these days? I mean, what's positive anymore?
Yeah. The news is all bad news.
The world's ending, right?
Yeah.
Or they look at their emails and I'm like, man, you're going to leave your life up to getting a good email to make sure that your day's going to go well? Mm-hmm. Give me a break. Like, I don't want to start my day that way. Like, I'd rather be in control of whatever's between here and here, between my ears, right? And make sure that I have that centered. Your brain's it's a machine. It's a muscle. How are you building that muscle every day? So that's my daily morning routine. And then I work out, and then I, get dressed, and then I go about my way. But
get dressed in the spiffy suits, dude. Every day, always looking fire.
Well, all of us are putting on our superhero suits every day. This happens to be mine because of the line of work I do. But you got to put on something that's going to help you reinforce, who you are. Make sure that it's reinforcing that $1 million mentality, right? That I feel like $1 million. I'm a winner. I got this. Let's go, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the way that you take care of yourself, and we can get into this, later, but how do you fuel your body?
Yeah.
I'm super sensitive to what I put inside of my body. Thank God my wife is like one of the most healthiest people I've ever met in my life. She's and I are super healthy. We're very cognizant about the fuel that we put into our body to mm-hmm. make sure that we can be everything that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Right. And optimize that.
Yeah.
Right. Your whole health starts with your biome.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so eating healthy is really important. And at the end of the day, I'm in a similar state, right, where I want to make sure that I am not connected to the things that happened today, determining whether or not I had a good day or not. I almost don't like it when people are like, hey, how was your day? Did you have a good day? Like, It doesn't matter. Like, good day is a choice, But I want to reflect on, hey, what were our blessings for today? And let me make sure that I'm feeling, closure to today and energized about tomorrow, and then go to bed and let's get up and let's get fighting again.
And seems like you have a pretty tight schedule, pretty disciplined. How do you manage to balance yourself as a high performer with also raising your kids, taking care of your wife, and making sure that you're not leaving that on the sidelines?
Yeah. So first of all, I think my wife and I take care of each other. But we, when you have faith and then you have a relationship with your wife and then your kids, nothing else really matters. And so those things are foundational. As far as time, and I think the word of intentionality is critical. making sure that your life has the most important things on the calendar first is really important. So those things that are on your calendar need to be aligned with your values. It's really important that we have family dinner every night. So that's priority. It's important that we're engaged in our kids' lives. So that's a priority. For instance, I coach football for my younger son's football team, right? It takes a lot of my time, but it's on the calendar, and I built my life around it, right? So make sure that I'm not giving up on making sure that my business is still continuing to grow, for instance. I'm not going to do that to the detriment of my business. So what else is going to give? I'll give up something of myself personally so I can spend time helping young men learn about life through football and spend time with my younger son, right? But I think life is about prioritizing and intentionality. And too many people, they put time. They say that time is the most important thing. There's a lot of people who have time with people, but they're not really there with that person. So like my kids don't care if I'm sitting with them for half an hour, but I'm on my phone scrolling, but we haven't been on the same couch. That's not really time.
Yeah, it's not.
I'd rather have 5 minutes of us just having true engagement, right, about life than 30 minutes where I'm not paying attention. So you have to be really sensitive, and I've worked on this. I'm not perfect at it, but we tend to put my phone down and away so that we're there with the people that we love and that we're super intentional with our time. But prioritizing those things is really important. And then, I always say that paradise is not a destination, it's a perspective. We all, you can choose to live a blessed life if you actually see it that way. But I feel like that every single day. And I want to make sure that I'm intentional about living in that space with people I love every day. Yeah. Again, I am not perfect at it, right? But I'm constantly working for it. But it's really about just how I see life through the lens that I see life.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, but it's really about making sure that your priorities are straight. And my priority is not more of everything.
Yeah.
It's about deeper relationships and about prioritizing those.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are in a seesaw of life, and they talk about life maybe in seasons, where they get a great idea and they say, I'm going to be totally all in on that. But they don't create an environment of discipline to help them continue to be successful. And then you revert back to perhaps your bad habits because you haven't created new ones. Yeah. So I think some people have great intent. Hey, I want to be more engaged with my kids, or I'm going to do a date night once a month, right? And then life happens and you fall back into the groove. And so I think a lot of this is people have good intention, but then they don't create an environment of discipline where success is inevitable consistently. Yeah. Right. So if you're all in and committed to that, well, how are you going to make sure that your environment is supportive of that? So if you want to create a habit, there's a lot of people that say, you got to do it for 21 days or 60 days or 30 days. I don't really know the number, but I do know that if you're going to be all in on something, you got to be consistently doing it. And I like to think about it in terms of just checking in with myself, saying, hey, am I still consistently doing it? And if I'm not, what needs to change in my environment to help be supportive for me to consistently do that? The reason I'm saying that as a foundation is I think people generally want to be a good husband or father or friend or coworker or business owner or whatever it might be. They want to be inherently good. It's not that they don't, but then life gets going for all of us, and we let life control how we then operate. And it can't be that way, right? I know plenty of people who are busy. Bad excuse. It's not a good excuse, right? I mean, how many people do you know that are busy? How many people have you done this podcast with? You're like, oh my gosh, that lady's got a lot going on.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Probably a lot, right?
All of them, probably, actually.
Yeah.
That's why scheduling them is so hard.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I think that's part of it. And then, have you studied Matthew 25?
No.
It's the story about the master who has the 3 servants, and he gives each of them a certain amount of talents, right? Money.
Yeah.
And he goes away and then he comes back and he wants to know what people did with those talents. Essentially, it's a metaphor for God has blessed you with certain talents. What are you going to do with them? Are you going to multiply them or are you going to sit on them and hide?
Yeah.
Are you going to be afraid to use your talents?
Yeah.
And the moral of the story was, the one that had the 5 talents doubled them, and the one that had the 2 talents doubled them, and the one that had the 1 talent buried it.
Yeah.
And then they came back and the master awarded the guy who buried that 1 talent to the one that had the most. And he was proud of them. But the whole story is ultimately, how are you taking what you've been blessed with and building upon that? So when I think about balancing my life, I hate that, by the way. I don't even know what that means.
Work-life balance.
So I appreciate the question, but I think what the way I think about it, and I think, David, this is what you're asking me as well, is how do you make sure that you're operating with your highest level of standard and expectation, the way that God has blessed you with these talents, so that you really are being the best version of yourself in all these areas.
Yeah.
And when I think about it in that way, that I've been blessed with it, I don't feel like any people call it problems, but any opportunity that's in front of you is not big enough for us to just step into it and go, hey, let's go figure it out. And whether that's by myself or I surround myself with people that are championing me, right, to help me, they're my success team around me to help me, whatever it is that's in front of me, like, let's go get it done. And so I look at it like you got one shot in life.
Yeah.
And if you've been blessed with these gifts, what are you doing to make sure that you're living to that standard? And what it does is it shows others what's possible, and they start seeing it in themselves, and then they go do it, and then that multiplies in such a positive way.
And what does that look like tactically, right? Because I mean, me personally, I struggle with balancing. It's all a balancing act, right? Like I have work, my personal projects, I have this podcast, I have my girlfriend, I have my family, I have my friends, and there's like all these circles that I want to be great at. I want to have great relationships with my friends, my family, my girlfriend, etc. And so a lot of times I find it difficult to really dial in on one thing without losing a little bit on the other thing. And so how do we take this mentality of I'm going to be great at all of these things and then still live that, right? Like in theory, it sounds great. How do we actually do that in practice?
Yeah, well, one, I think you have to have a vision for what you want. Mm-hmm. What are your objectives? And then you have to be able to see what success looks like. You have to be able to see it and define it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll never know when you got there. Mm-hmm. And success, I think, is ongoing. Yeah. Right. It's who you are. You've heard of the, people write like a vision statement, but they write it in the post tense, and I write it in the present. So I am versus one day I will be. Right. And so I think that it's important that you recognize, well, who are you in all those areas of your life? How are you showing up? A vision statement needs to be now, where your feet are at. And so what I tell people is like, okay, let's identify all those areas of life that are really important to you, that are priorities to you. And what are your objectives in each of those areas? And how do you define success in each of those areas? And then write an I am statement. I am, fill in the blank, a great son to my family. And this is how that shows up every single day. I am a great business owner. And these are the things that I do to make sure that I'm moving towards, X. Yeah. I am a great boyfriend because I do these things with my girlfriend. And it's things that she might need, right, for her to feel connected to you. Mm-hmm. But I always think about it in that sense. In fact, I read it to myself. I think I mentioned that earlier. I read that statement to myself every morning.
What's your vision statement?
It's very long. I can't even memorize it, but it does focus on 6 areas of my life. Mm-hmm. And I write specifically about how I want to show up in those 6 areas of my life. So one of them is like my career and my purpose. And I read it to myself, what is it in my career and purpose that I'm doing today? And one of it is my family and freedom, my faith, my health and my fitness, my financial freedom, and then my community engagement. Yeah. So I write specific I am statements in those 6 areas. And that's how I measure success. How am I showing up in those areas every day? By the way, I'm not really like hitting it every day. Yeah. I make a lot of mistakes. Yeah. But I know what I'm aspiring for, and I know when I'm out of alignment, with who I know to be.
Yeah.
And I got to pull myself back in. But I think a lot of people, they keep going through life without any intent of who they want to be. So they never know where they're going.
Yeah.
Because they don't even know. And so nothing they ever do will create long-term satisfaction.
Yeah.
Everything's about feelings and emotions. What made me feel good right now in the moment? Well, who cares? Are you living your life so you can feel good?
I hope not.
I know, but a lot of people do, and I get it. I totally get it. I mean, our whole world is built around how can we make you feel a certain way, because it's emotional, and emotion's good, but it's, I think we're misaligned because we think we can buy joy, we can buy happiness, and all those areas that you just said. Like, how do I balance all those things out? You can't buy all those things that you just mentioned. They don't care about stuff as much, right? Mostly, they care about, hey, are you being the best version of what I need you to be to me, right?
Yeah.
In our life, oftentimes it's a lot less about what you can do for, like, buy them, and it's a lot more about how you can serve them in the way that they need to be served.
Yeah. How you can support them.
Yeah.
How you can listen to them.
Yeah.
How you can give of yourself for them.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think that you mentioned something about having something that you're striving for, right? In your vision statements, there's like a bar that you're reaching for. And I think maybe myself and other people like me often struggle with the bar is always moving, right? So it's like you're trying to balance all these areas of life, but you don't have a set bar for what success is. So that means you can never win.
Yeah.
Because you could always do better there. You could always do better there. You could always do better there.
Yeah.
Maybe I could have been a better boyfriend. Maybe I could have been a better business owner.
Yeah.
Maybe I could have been a better podcaster. But ultimately, if we can delineate what those things are that mean success to you, what is the actual bar, then we can actually feel good when we reach it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I love how you said that. I think, well, what do you want me to comment specifically on that?
I think my question there would be, how are you defining your goals? How do you make these achievable? How do you make these things that are measurable, that you succeeded, so you don't have to sit there and flagellate yourself for not being at the very top of the top when obviously you can't be the best of the best at everything.
Yeah. Great. So, one, I think it's important that, achievers tend to not celebrate success. They tend to move on to the next thing. And I've had to teach myself to say, pause, reflect. What did it take to accomplish whatever it is that we were working towards, moving from A to B? And in that reflection, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
What do we do well? What didn't work?
Yeah.
That was part of our strategy that we don't want to keep doing, or we need to refine. And what do we want to start doing that we learn that, hey, maybe this will actually be helpful the next go? I think it's important, though, to celebrate your successes, to take pause and to do that in a way that honors the work that you did, to reward yourself for it, right? And then that cycle becomes a habit. Too many people move the goalposts, and I believe the actual other direction. They don't keep moving them up; they move them down. And before they've even gotten to the finish line, they move the finish line like closer to them. They're like, "Look, I made it." And I'm like, "Well, you moved the finish line. This was it was a marathon, not a half marathon."
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't ride 13 miles and still feel good about it. I mean, I guess you could, but if you originally said, "I'm doing 26," you can't run 13 and say, "Look, I did 13. It's still good."
Yeah, it's like signing up for the 26 and then stopping at 13.
Yeah.
And then you tell everyone you did a half.
Exactly. It's like, we'll just sign up for the half in the first place and go kill it, instead of signing up for the marathon and then not doing it and say, "Oh, I still ran 13. What? Like, you got an F.
Yeah.
That's a 50%. Sorry. So, but I think a lot of people move the goalposts in that direction.
Yeah.
They give up before they've actually run through the tape. And so, look, you have to define clearly what it is that your objective is. And then you have to define clearly when you know that you've crossed that line of success.
Yeah.
And it's not about feelings. I think too many people put down like, once I feel this way, well, heck, I can wake up tomorrow and feel a certain way, right? I can buy that happiness, right? For a moment, it's fleeting.
Yeah.
But what are you actually doing to say, here's the number, the goal, whatever it is, here's the thing I want to accomplish, and I'm going to move towards that. Once I get there, that's when I know that I've hit that thing. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. This is the magic of it. It's not even about the number or the thing that you get or the line that you cross. It's not that. And that's what a lot of people think it is. They go, once I hit that number or once I get that thing, then I'm successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they feel like once they've arrived, they'll change.
Yeah.
You know, like they're going to look in the mirror in the morning and go, see?
Yeah.
Now I made it.
Yeah.
Super disappointing, right? Because then you're going to look at yourself going, I thought things were going to be different.
Yeah.
And they're not. What they fail to realize is that the journey that you're taking, the falls, the knockdowns, the pain, the struggle, the adversity that you face, but then you kept moving forward.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, right? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I'm going to go find 2 yeses for every no. But the person that you become through that journey towards hitting whatever that goal was, that's the gift.
Yeah.
Nobody can take that gift away. That's what I love about life. And that's what I've realized. I was one of those people. By the way, I think most people are like that.
Yeah.
Most people I've coached and mentored, they're like, wait, once I hit this thing, then I've got it. I'm like, well, probably not. But
I'll finally be happy once I'm a millionaire, once I have my family, once like whatever it may be, right? Everyone has an idea in their head of once I arrive, I'll be happy. And they arrive and it's the same exact thing as the day before. They feel exactly the same.
Totally.
Exactly the same.
And but the thing is, like, if you fail to see that the joy is in the moment, like right now, you and me, we're hanging, right? I love this. This is great. I love watching where you were and where you are, where you're going. It's awesome to see. I can share these things because of all the struggle and adversity that I've had in my life. That's been a gift. It's been a gift. And that's why we can have this conversation. So I pray that it's helpful to the next generation, right? When they hear this, they go, all right, I'm going to lean into this thing. Whatever it is that's in front of them. But you got to be clear with what you want. And you got to keep going. Yeah. And you got to go to the bell. You got to run through the tape.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, whatever metaphor you want in life.
Go the distance.
You got to go. Yeah. You just do not give up ever. And even if you run through the tape and you don't make it, we don't hit every goal. Right?
Yeah.
That extra push that you gave at the end, that focus and intentionality that you had, saying, I'm going all the way, no matter what. That's the gift. Whether you hit the number or not. And I'm not saying that it's okay not to hit the number. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Like if you say you're going to do something, you should do it. And if you didn't do it, you damn well better reflect on it and go, what am I going to do better next time? But the person that you become by pushing yourself, that's where you're going to reflect going, you know what? I did these things. I forgot to do these things, or I didn't know, or now I know, and I'm going to do them next time. But if you didn't push, you never know. And then you let yourself off the hook and you go, well, I ran the half marathon.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Still 13 miles. I can still eat whatever I want today.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, what are you going to do? You
didn't hit the goal.
You didn't hit the number.
Yeah, definitely. I think that you're talking about not achieving the goal and still leaving it out on the field, right?
Right.
And the part that I really like about that is that regardless of whatever we do, we're going to die and we're going to have unfinished goals. And the one question that will come back is, did I give it my all?
Yeah.
Did I use up the entire tank? Did I leave it on empty? And that's what's going to give you that fulfillment, that confidence, that happiness that you actually went out and gave it your all, even if you didn't make it.
Yeah.
You did all of it. Like with your marathon example.
Yeah.
Much different if the guy who signs up for 26 miles stops at 13.
Yeah.
Versus signs up for 26 miles, passes out at 13, gave it his all.
Great Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talk to me about how you think about external goals versus internal goals, right? With like a 26-mile marathon, it's I'm going to run 26 miles versus, oh, I'm going to do something that I would know I did internally, right? Like you can have a goal that you can only control externally or a goal that's set to be internal.
Give me an example of an internal
I'll
goal.
give you an example with even this podcast, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to get to 1 million subscribers.
Okay.
Versus I'm going to post 800 episodes.
Okay.
I can control one of those things. I can't control the other.
Yeah. So on the external one, which I think is what most people tend to do, the difference, so that one you're just setting a number out there, right? The internal number, though, the non-controllables, what I've done is I've said, all right, what can I control to help the internal goal that I have of reaching 1 million subscribers? They both still come down to activity.
Yeah.
You still have to do activity, right? You still need to promote.
Yeah.
So how are you going to go out and promote to get the subscribers? Either way, it's all about activity, no matter what. And when I say activity, I'm talking about taking action.
Yeah.
I think, though, that, when I look at internals, I'm like, okay, I still need to set out an activity commitment that I'm going to make. And if it's not, I got to test it along the way. And if it's not putting me on the path, I got to do something different, whether it's more activity or different activity or better activity. But that's how I think about it.
Yeah. So you have the external goal that you're aiming for.
Yeah.
You break it down to what pushes that external goal forward.
Yeah.
And then you test it, take that activity, try it. Did it move it forward? Yeah. And if it does, keep doing it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, throw it out, try a new one. Okay.
Yeah. But also, I don't know if I've ever just rested on, well, I just do it this way.
Yeah.
Because, in fact, I think you could argue, most people that know me would say, he probably tries to refine it almost too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like right when somebody gets a hang of it, they're like, did you just change it again?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think this way works better.
Or maximizing.
Yeah. And so I'm always trying to optimize. I would say actually optimizing how I say something. If I could be saying it with one less word or more articulately, or if I changed my breath or my tone or the approach of the visuals that I added. I mean, any of those things. I'm always testing.
Yeah.
I'm always testing. But one thing that I think is universal, no matter what I'm doing, I do it with conviction. And conviction comes through experience and activity. So that's why I bring it back down to, a lot of people ask, in our line of work, but a lot of lines of work, whether you're in real estate or mortgages or you're a business owner or sales professional, pharma, whatever, investments, insurance, it doesn't matter. There's always language that all of those industries have. The best of the best have language.
Yeah.
And so people always want to know, hey, how do you say what you say? Like it's not the words that I use, it's how I say it. You can say the same words that I say, but I'm going to win. Why? And when I say win, I'm going to get them to work with me. And the reason is because I have a deep conviction around it.
Yeah.
I know how to say it, and they believe me because I say it authentically.
Yeah.
And that comes with belief. And belief, as I think I talked about this earlier, but most people feel like they have to believe first before they act.
Yeah.
And life doesn't work that way. So the reason I believe so much is because I've taken a lot of actions.
Yeah. And you knew it worked. Now it's worked. Now you know it's going to work.
Yeah.
So you have that conviction.
Yes.
It didn't come first.
No.
You had to prove that it worked.
I had to believe other people were telling me the truth that, hey, trust me, Armen, if you just keep doing this, it's going to work. I'm like, tell me the story again, please, because I need some.
Because I don't believe it right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't believe it right now.
I didn't
It
sleep
sucks.
last night. Yeah, I have no money. What do I do?
Yeah.
There's a lot of those nights.
And that would be the place where mentorship comes along, right?
Absolutely.
Is they've had the story.
Yeah.
They have conviction, and they're relaying that conviction into you and telling you, this is the story. It works. Just trust the process. Continue on until you have your own story.
Yes.
And that's when the mentee becomes a peer with the mentor, is they've learned the same story.
So well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you've talked a lot about your partner, your wife, and how she has a huge impact on your success as both a father, as a business owner, and as a person. Talk to me about finding the right partner, finding a good partner.
So, I pinch myself for who I get to be married to, and in our lives. I met my wife twice. Sounds ridiculous, but the first time I met her, it was at a social gathering, and I was in this building phase. I was the guy that was talking about earlier, where he tell me the story again. I was super shy, quiet, and certainly wouldn't have walked in to talk to a woman as beautiful as her, and just the way that she was attractive just from her smile and the way that she just moved around. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I got to know what this is. But I just like, this person's totally out of my league. But we had conversed a couple of times because friends had introduced us and we were at social gatherings. Enough that I remembered her from when I met her the second time. And so the first time I met her was in 2002 in Denver. And then she moved away, and I'd seen her maybe a handful of times at parties and social gatherings. And one night I'm out, she's out at a club, separate places, and we run into each other on a street corner at 1:15 in the morning in downtown Denver. And she walks past me, and I walk this way, and I stop, and she stops, backs to each other. I turn around, and I'm staring at her. I'm like, how do I know that girl? And then it hit me, but then I forgot her name. And she's staring at me, and I'm like, oh, remember her name, please, God, remember her name. Exactly. And as she always is in life, she runs up to me and had that look on my face, and she said, Armen, it's Jamila. And I said, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. What are you doing here? I haven't seen you for years. And that moment in time changed everything. It was like the world stopped, and it was the two of us having a conversation, even though there was thousands of people around us, thousands. And I'm just looking at her, she's looking at me. What was interesting is the next day, before she flew back to where she was living at that time, which was Houston, Texas, she and I went and we both separately went to the Broncos game, and then we went and had drinks afterwards with our friends while our friends were all interviewing me.
Like, what are your intentions?
I know. I was like, everybody's sitting on that side of the table, and it was me over here. But I was different. I was like super confident in who I was at that time. Yeah. Where I wasn't the first time she met me. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm saying I met her twice, because she met me once as the quiet, shy kid, and then she met me once as, oh, he's a man. And we then went and got a drink afterwards, and we just I don't necessarily recommend this to everybody, but I went straight in. I'm like, let's go. What are your values? What do you believe in? What's your faith? Tell me about your family. How many kids do you want? On our first date.
That's crazy.
It's bananas. But it was the most like out of this world.
What was her reaction to that?
She was like, this many, that many, this, that. What about you? How about this? I'm like, oh my God, this is actually happening. We were married 363 days later. That was September 17th of 2005. Six. We got engaged February 3rd of 2007, got married September 15th of 2007.
Dang.
I know. It was crazy. But our values, to answer your question, were so aligned that it was easy. Yeah. It just made sense. It just made sense. Yeah. And when your values are aligned with your partner in life, you become one, and you can overcome anything, right? Because you can always come back to your values. That doesn't mean that you don't have nuances to how you approach life and how you see things. Of course, your personalities are different, but your values and your principles are aligned. It's the same thing I talk to my kids all the time. I'm like, you don't want to marry somebody just like you. That's not what values and principles are. But your values and principles are foundational to how you think and how you operate and how you see the world. Yeah. And how you make decisions. And if you can share values, at least you can approach how you do things in life in a similar fashion, the same foundation. And you could challenge each other, but you always know that you're going to end up in a beautiful spot. That doesn't mean that you can't argue about something. You can argue, but you're still going to love each other. Yeah. Right? You're not going to give up on each other. Yeah. And so that's how we operate in our lives. Like we talk all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a day that's gone by that we haven't taken a walk somewhere. We have family dinner all the time. We prioritize that. We just hang out and just chat. We have date nights every night, it feels like. I swear.
Yeah.
It's the coolest thing.
How long have you been married?
So we got married September 15th of 2007.
Seven.
So 17 years.
Still having day nights.
Oh, man. We
a
have
lot
date
of
nights
people
all the
lose
time.
it feels like.
Well,
right?
they do because look, you know, life happens. You're busy. Everybody's busy, which is an excuse for I'm not really
everything.
focused on and being intentional about what's really most important in our life. I get it. Everybody's busy. I get it.
Yeah.
Totally. We live in a culture of busyness.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of significance for busyness.
Yeah.
And that's where all this conversation ultimately has been check in with your busyness, and is your busyness aligned with actually what you should be doing? And if it's not, then you're just moving paper.
Get rid of the busyness.
You're just moving paper around the desk.
Yeah.
So you can feel like I did something today.
Yeah, that reminds me of this really funny story of, Diogenes, the philosopher?
Yes.
And I think there was one point where something was going on in the city. There was maybe a natural disaster that everyone was scared of. And so they all start running around the city,
Yeah.
panicking, and it's all in disarray. And so Diogenes starts pushing a rock up a mountain and then letting it go down. And he keeps doing that. And everyone's like, what are you doing? It's like, this is how useful you're all being right now.
I'm going to steal that story. That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And so I think that goes back to that busyness, right? It's like people are panicking. There's something going on. And it's like, are you doing anything to support that natural disaster or to minimize the effects or to actually drive something forward? We can all just run around and panic and busy.
Yes.
And you'll get a claim for it because everyone's like, oh, this guy's so busy.
Yeah.
He must be doing important things, right? And busyness is this heuristic
Yes.
that we've used as a indicator of success or is on the path to success. But everyone's busy. Everyone's trying to look busy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it bleeds into everything in our life. But when we sit there and we talk, I mean, my wife has made me a better person. I mean, she's amazing. Anything she does, she's like totally all in and committed, and she's great at it. And she's had a lot of success in her life and at the highest levels and whatever she's done. I mean, she's amazing. And it makes me want to be a better person.
Yeah.
It makes me want to serve her and my kids. But I also tell you this is biblical. When you bring kids in this world, now it really gets real.
Yeah.
And the first introduction to God for your kids is watching you and your spouse. And so, because that's who's teaching the kids. And so if you're not good, what does that do for your kids? And beyond biblical, like how does that percolate into all areas of their life?
Yeah.
The foundation and example that you set for your kids in your marriage, it's not by accident that sometimes when there's divorces, the kids get divorced.
Yeah.
Right? Or when there's trouble in the family, the kids are not well adjusted. And I know that I'm saying this as a blanket statement. I know sometimes people get into the wrong marriage. I get it. I totally get it. And I don't wish that on anybody. It's tough, right? But I'm just sharing this with you. Just in my own perspective, as I've been blessed to be married to the right person. But I had also spent a lot of time thinking about people that I had dated in the past or experiences that I had and what I appreciated and what I didn't appreciate.
Yeah.
And so I knew when she walked into my life and we talked about all those things, it was like all those questions were not accidental.
Mm-hmm.
They were on my mind because they were important to me as to who I wanted to build a life with.
Yeah.
And so when all of that hard stuff, the foundational stuff was bedrock, I'm like, cool, we can handle anything. Bring it on. We got it.
Yeah.
And now we can teach our kids that. So that's the importance of having a great marriage, man. And I wish that for you as well, with whoever it might be.
Yeah.
That's lucky enough, blessed enough to be married to you.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'd like to comment first off on how crazy the story is of how you guys met, which is a random encounter while she's living somewhere else, and it's someone that you knew before.
Yeah.
And I have a few questions about that.
Yeah.
Which, one, a lot of people can get married quickly sometimes,
Yeah.
and a lot of times it doesn't work out well. So that's one thing that I'm curious about. And then two, what was the experience like for you being this shy guy who's not super confident, and you meet this woman who you think is attractive, and at that point in time you weren't really the guy that had all those qualities of being a man, and then in the second interaction you did have all of those qualities. How were those two delineated? What was that experience like?
Yeah. So, okay. On the first question, so forgive me. The first part is,
did you have any doubts about kind of getting married so quickly? Because a lot of people will marry quickly, and
in the time frame of when we met to I had dated enough girls, and she had dated enough guys at that time. We had an understanding of what we both had appreciated and what we wanted in a relationship with a spouse.
Yeah.
So I think that was healthy enough for us to understand that. Again, that's what we needed. Yeah. I'm not saying that's what everybody needs. Some people know it's the first time they ever met somebody. That's it. Some people are serial daters and because nobody's ever perfect enough, and I think that's also a problem. We were just so aligned in our principles and values that everything else just fell into place.
Yeah.
So I wasn't afraid. It just made sense to me. And I just thought, well, this is part of my journey in life. And like, why would we not move forward?
Yeah.
It just didn't even cross my mind. And I know if you asked Jamila, she would say the same thing because we talked about this. The second thing, how do I delineate between being a shy, quiet kid?
Yeah. You had two experiences with the same girl.
Well, so what's interesting is the business I'm in, as we've, sort of been talking about throughout this whole conversation, it'll knock you in your teeth. And it'll see what you're made of.
Yeah.
And I owe it somewhat to the business as well for creating this space for me to get knocked down and have to keep fighting and get back up and saying I'm never giving up and I am going to continue to move forward and I'm going to continue to embrace the hell that I feel like I'm in right now, that I know that I'm in, because I'm not going to give up. And that experience put me in a position to where when I saw her again, I had a different level of confidence in all aspects of my being, both internally and externally.
Yeah. And so would you draw that change inside of you mostly to getting knocked down in business and seeing what you were made of?
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge part of it. A huge part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that changed between that period of time and the other period of time?
I became a student of life as well. Mm-hmm. I was committed to my growth and learning every day. I was reading a ton. I was listening to anything that I could get my hands on that could better me. Whether it was, podcasts weren't really anything then, but a lot of these speakers would come in with, their CDs. You don't even know what I'm talking about.
No, I do. My dad has some of those.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So like all those like, old school speaker, anytime I'd be driving, I'd have a CD in the car listening to somebody, whether it was, whoever it might have been, or it was industry. I was listening all the time saying, how can I better myself? How can I grow? I got to be all in and committed to this. Mm-hmm. And little did I know that was preparing me for a relationship with my wife.
Yeah.
That was not why I was doing it. I was doing it because I wanted to be better in business. I didn't realize that it was helping me be better as a person in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, I was talking to my kids about this. I said, and it goes back to the talents, in Matthew 25. When you're given something, I think you should always say, I'm going to make the best out of this. If you're given a broom and there's a mess, I'm going to clean this up better than anybody's ever cleaned this mess up ever. They're going to want to eat food off this floor. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But why not do your absolute, like, strive for excellence in everything that you do. Why not? And the difference between, hey, it's good enough and excellence is not as much as people think, but the experience that people on the other end receive means the world to them. And the person, again, that you become by going just that extra step, it changes everything. And it's really about the habit of doing that with everything that you do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You get invited to something, write a handwritten note to thank them for that experience. When was the last time you got a handwritten note?
Maybe like, I think this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it meant to you when you got that?
Yeah. I mean, getting a handwritten note is a great experience. Like, you feel like the person cares.
Yeah.
Right.
It took time to acknowledge
Like, as
you.
opposed to a text or a voicemail.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is so cool. Like, this person actually cares. Right.
Also nice, by the way. Thank you for acknowledging me, but way beyond.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time you sent a thank you?
I sent, or I guess I gave a handwritten letter probably like 2-ish months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did that experience, what did that mean to you and what did it mean to them?
To me, it meant a lot. I got a lot out of writing the letter and sharing a lot of things in a written with pen and paper format.
Yeah.
And to the person who received it, it also meant a ton to them. And so,
amazing.
Yeah, to your point, that extra little bit has a massive impact.
It's great. I mean, I think if you could start with a thank you a week.
Yeah.
Or a note a week, just to acknowledge somebody. It could really change your perception of how you see the world and people's perception of how they see the world.
Yeah.
Two very positive things can happen from that.
Yeah, definitely. You have 2 young boys, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about...
I don't even know where we got off on the thank yous, by the way. I don't even know what I was going with that.
Go the extra mile.
Go the extra mile. That's what it was.
Go the extra mile.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Do a handwritten note.
Yeah.
And that has outsized returns compared to saying thank you over a text, over a phone call.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to touch on you're raising 2 young boys. And
sure.
Kind of a weird... Masculinity is kind of falling apart. There's not a lot of masculine role models, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at least in recent years, you have masculine gurus or whatever you want to call them, Andrew Tate, all these guys online kind of preying on the lack of masculine role models. And my question to you would be, how are you teaching your boys masculinity in this environment? How are you raising them to be men?
It's probably one of the most important jobs that I have in my life right now is that. My 16-year-old he just started driving less than a month ago. He's got a lot more autonomy and freedom. He only has a couple years left in our house before he's going to go off to, university or whatever he's going to do. And then it's like, oh my gosh, think about it in that way. It's a lot of weight. And it's not like you have forever. Now, of course, you're going to keep teaching him beyond that, but he's going to be off on his own and having to make decisions on his own. He's already doing it right now. And my almost 14-year-old to be 14 in a couple of days, same thing. Everything, in my opinion, it's all at the dinner table. The conversations that we have at the dinner table, they emanate into all of our day. So we spend a lot of time just talking about, well, first off, every time we have dinner, we always pray. And then we talk about what we're grateful for. I think it's important that my boys understand that you have to have gratitude in the moment right now, and that you have to be appreciative and grateful for all the blessings that you have in your life right now. And you have to lead people into seeing that, because I want my kids, when they have kids, to remind their kids of what it means to be a grateful human being because of the blessings that they have, no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't care what you have, where you are. It's not a money thing. It's just, there's always an opportunity to be grateful. Always. My wife, how I treat my wife and honor her, I do that because she deserves that, and that's how you're supposed to treat a woman. But I would know my boys are watching. I know they watch how I treat my wife and how I speak to her and how I communicate. I think that chivalry, as much as our society wants to kill chivalry because somehow that's bad, I'm like, man, my boys better open the door for women. They better make sure that they walk them to the door, whatever that door might be. They better have the right manners of please and thank you. Yesterday we went to an event. The boys wanted to leave before us. They went out and thanked the host and hostess. I'm like, I don't need to tell you that. You need to go do that. You need to be a wolf in this world, not a sheep. Do not be a follower. People are always going to be, look, human nature is this way, right? There are people that are predators. And when I say predators, I mean that in the most aggressive sense, and also just, kids are they have good intent, but they're dumb.
Yeah.
They just do dumb things. They don't necessarily mean it in a bad, malicious way oftentimes, but they do dumb things. You got to be able to step up for people and make sure that you protect others when they might not be able to protect themselves at that moment.
Yeah.
Because people are going to come after people all the time, and you have to be able to step across the grain and step into whatever that is, as uncomfortable or as hard as that may be, because it's not the popular thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. You need to speak up when others are not willing to. You need to also be vulnerable. I'm vulnerable in front of my kids all the time because I don't want them to think that masculinity is not about being vulnerable or sharing your feelings. It's so far from the truth. I want my kids to know that, hey, dad has tough stuff that he's dealing with all the time. It's not about avoiding the tough stuff. It's about saying, what am I going to do next? So I talked to them very openly about it. Hey, here's some really hard things that I was dealing with today. But here's how I thought about them, and here's what I did. And I want them to know that it's not about having less problems. It's about having higher quality problems, and then being equipped and building the muscle to know, like, okay, here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
It's about taking care of your family. Like in our house, the way our house works, I'm the primary income earner, and Jamila has been a stay-at-home mom and has raised our kids and has done everything. And that for us is how we've chosen to live our life, and we've been blessed enough to be able to do that. But we are very much a partnership in raising our boys. And my boys know that I got it, and they're good, because I want them to know that no matter what the hell is going on in my life, they need to know that they are secure and they're taken care of, and that I want them to do the same thing for their family. Don't bring your shit home, and vomit all over your family about all the disaster that happened in your day, especially in my business. It's really easy to come home and go, you would not believe this, and this happened, bring all your stress home. That is not manhood. Like, park your car wherever you park it, in the garage, your side of your house, whatever. Take some deep breaths, walk inside and say, what am I going to do to be the best husband and father to my family? And to my boys, I'm like, I'm good. Because my boys, I want them to know, like, no matter what's going on, Dad's just, he's like stoic. He tells us he's got stuff going on, but at the end of the day, he's like, I got this. Let's just keep going forward. I have the discipline to do that. But that, I know it's a lot of stuff, but being a man is like, it's not as hard as people think. It's just not. But you have to be intentional about it. And I know the world is trying to change that in ways that I don't think are serving boys becoming men. But I also think too, I just finished coaching my son's football team, and I got 21 kids, boys, 13-year-olds, and I started almost every coaching whatever. I said, this is my expectation and my standard, and I love you all, and I'm going to coach you to this. And if you're not there, we're going to keep going towards there. I'm not always going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not going to be playing, nice with you all the time or just telling you that you did a good job when you didn't. But when you earn it, I'll be the first to be loving on you and giving you a hug and congratulating you and cheering you on. That, I think, is really important in life. I do not want to put a cushion and a pillow down for these kids to fall on it and go, oh, that didn't hurt too much.
Yeah.
It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to go hard. It's okay to fight. Right? The person that you become, and we got to teach these kids this right now, that ultimately is going to help. It's going to help you feel and know that, hey, I'm strong inside. I can do this.
Yeah.
Right? Watch any movie about the hero's journey. They got to go through some hell to get to the other side. And our boys need to do this and understand right now that they can go through these little microcosms of difficulty in their lives to come out strong on the other end, because that's going to translate into everything they do in their life. I'll take a breath so you can comment.
I mean,
that's a lot.
That's all great. I think that there's a lot of values in there that are a bit more old school than modern values. And I think they're not necessarily palatable to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
Along with that, part of the being masculine part is saying those things, even when they're not as palatable.
Yeah.
Right. And my question following that would be that you had your dad pass away young.
Mm-hmm.
Did he instill all of these lessons in you, or did you go and learn them out on your own?
I was pretty fortunate to have a pretty awesome dad, for 19 years of my life. And I learned a lot from him. But I was just coming around the corner of understanding how life works.
Yeah.
When he passed away. So I've had to lean into learning a lot from, there's so many resources, but just from life as well. Reading, watching others that I respect, building relationships with mentors in my life, watching how men that were ahead of me that I looked up to and I said, this guy's got it going on. What is he doing that I need to pick up on? And just being open to that. Hiring coaches to just help me with not about necessarily masculinity, but just how do I go about my life and be committed to something. And so I've learned a lot along the way as well. Being married will teach you a lot too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know everything about being a man when I got married, but that's okay. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to know enough to get married, and then you got to grow together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it sucked losing a dad that early. It definitely was even harder on my brother.
Yeah.
Who was 16 at the time. But look, I mean, the way that I learned to understand was one, it wasn't, it's not, when I say understand, to accept. It wasn't my place to ask God why. Like, why would you do that to somebody that was that great? And I learned that wasn't the proper question to ask.
Yeah.
It was, all right, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
To make sure that I continue to honor the legacy that my dad had started, which is what I think about every day.
Yeah.
And he had set the tone for how he treated people. Everybody loved him. He was a lovable guy. He was a really good guy. And the way he treated my mom and their marriage and their relationship. And I have taken what he had set as a foundation for me and said, how can I know what he would want me to do, take it and make it better for my kids.
Yeah.
And so that's my perspective. Like, we're just stewards, man, in life. I'm here for a bit, and then I'm going to be gone, and whatever I do for the people that I get to spend time with, hopefully that makes a positive impact and it uses the talents that I've been blessed with.
Yeah. Passing the torch and multiplying them.
Yeah. I mean, it's not my torch. I just happen to be holding it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of us get tied to thinking that the torch is ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we come near the end of the podcast, we have a closing tradition.
Yeah.
As you know, the podcast is called Carrots and Sticks.
Yeah.
And every time we have a guest on, we ask them to make a carrot, which is a 2-week challenge,
Okay.
which pushes the guest to live courageously, and then a stick, which is the accountability portion of the challenge, which the guest also sets as their incentive
Ooh.
to live fearlessly.
I was not told about these things, so let's think through this.
Yeah, I mean, all the time you want.
All right, so my carrot is I'm going to do this thing courageously for 2 weeks.
You don't have to do it for 2 weeks. It's an action that faces a fear or that pushes you to live courageously.
Okay.
Within 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All right. And then that's the
carrot.
okay. And then the stick.
And the stick is what you have to do if you don't do it. Your incentive to
Okay.
do the stick.
It's so funny. I used to coach all of our new advisors with oftentimes like, hey, what do you respond well to? And some people were sticks, some were carrots. This is a good question. So, in our business coming up on year end, we want to have a great start to the first quarter. And so it's kind of easy to be distracted and say, okay, I'm just going to run to the end, but not really put ourselves in a great position for Q1. So my commitment between now and ultimately it's almost like Thanksgiving, right, when we're doing this. So let's say the next 2 weeks, what I will do so we have in our world points of contact, which means that I'm reaching out either via email, phone, text to clients.
Mm-hmm.
And typically I'm doing 30 a week. I will do 100 in the next 2 weeks, which is a lot, especially with the days that I have here.
Yeah.
But that will help me reach out and connect with people that I need to position ourselves to either be introduced to the right people that we need to or be connected to the right ones as we move into Q1.
Yeah. Love it.
All right. And if I don't do it, because I know I got to be honest with this in the stick situation. By the way, I just made a commitment this morning to do 30, which is already a stretch. So now I got to go revise that with my team.
With 100.
With 100 over 2, which is great. I love it. If I don't do it, and see, look, here's the thing. I'm going to do it, but
Yeah.
I'll entertain you on this.
Yeah.
I will. And the stick, does it need to go to something bad, or can it be something good that I just have to write a check for?
Could be something good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give to like one political party that I don't appreciate, and
Yeah.
another one. Because that's like it's helping somebody that I don't want to help.
Yeah.
I will. But I got to think about a good stick on this. It's something that I look up going, there's no freaking way that I'm doing this.
Yeah.
All right, here. This is a stick for me because this is hard to do. But if I box in the mornings
Mm-hmm.
and I box twice a week, and it's hard. It's a hard workout. It's like an hour and a half workout on average,
Mm-hmm.
and I do it twice a week because it's a lot.
Yeah.
I'll do that for 2 weeks straight, 5 days a week. I know I have to get up at 4 a.m. to do this.
Yeah.
So that would be really not something that I want to do. As much as I love it, I need to rest in between.
Yeah.
But that would be a pain in my ass, and I will do that.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah. Perfect.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Where can people find you if you want to be found?
Where can people find me? You can just Google my name, Armen Khadiwala, and a lot of stuff will pop up in there. I'm on a number of boards. So depending on what you want to read about me, you can connect with me on one of the boards that I'm on, or you can find us at anthologycapitalsolutions.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Hey,
much.
thanks for this time. This was great.
Yeah, this was
You're
a
like
great
the next
time.
Joe Rogan, man. You're really
Hopefully.
good at this.
Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
I'm impressed, man. Now we got to get you a studio with like curtains and
Yeah.
a cool American flag behind you and some mics.
That would be really cool.
Right?
Yeah.
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 I love this though.